Hello and welcome to In Motion, the Compass podcast. Compass is the Community Planning Association of Southwest Idaho. We plan for the future of Ada and Canyon counties and aim to give you the most up-to-date information on what's being planned in your area, updates and information regarding the region's long-range transportation plan, Communities in Motion 2050, and to keep you in the loop about Compass events so that you can be involved in the future of transportation here in the Treasure Valley. Today I'm here with Hunter Mulhall, a principal planner here at Compass. Hi, Hunter.
Hello.
Hi. Would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am a principal planner on the technical team with Compass. I've been here almost 8 years now. I have a background in data analysis and GIS, and now a pretty strong background in transportation planning after being here for several years. I work on a lot of our congestion management stuff, performance monitoring, and some data analysis, and then our transportation systems management and operations and intelligent transportation system planning. And then I also do safety.
Awesome, which we're here to talk about today, our Regional Safety Action Plan. So you are a principal planner at Compass. You are in charge of the Regional Safety Action Plan. Would you just kind of give us a brief intro on what that plan is?
Yeah, it's a regional strategy for improving transportation safety in our region. So that's Ada and Canyon counties. And it outlines the actions we as a region need to take in order to eliminate fatalities and serious injuries on our roads.
Awesome. So what prompted Compass to pursue the creation of the Regional Safety Action Plan in the Treasure Valley? Or for the Treasure Valley?
Yeah. The idea really started with our performance monitoring process. I got to say maybe 4 to 5 years ago, we were reviewing our performance monitoring scorecard called the Change in Motion scorecard. That's a process where we look at how we're performing with relation to our goals in Communities in Motion. And the part of that process is the reflection, is looking back on how we did and then trying to make corrections or changes in order to perform better at the next evaluation period. And one of the areas that the subcommittee diving into that scorecard noticed was we weren't performing with our safety numbers as we'd want to. And so we dug around and looked around to some of our peer agencies, and we saw that some of these MPOs and other areas were doing a regional safety plan. And so that was a need we identified there. And then it just so happened to be that a great federal grant opportunity opened up to make this plan happen sooner than we would have expected.
And could you just tell us what the grant was?
Yeah, it's a competitive federal grant called the Safe Streets and Roads for All program. That was established with now the last administration through the bipartisan infrastructure law. It sets aside about $1 billion a year to improve transportation safety. So there's 3 types of awards. There's planning, demonstration, and implementation grants. And Compass applied for and was awarded a planning grant for the Regional Safety Action Plan.
Awesome. And my next question for you was, what role does federal funding play in the development of and implementation of the RSAP? And I guess you kind of covered. Right?
Yeah, it's paid for, and I want to point out that part of this competitive program, to go for the implementation funds, which are the big infrastructure type projects, you have to have a plan that meets the requirements of the program. And so Compass took on that role. We asked our member agencies, hey, do you have a safety plan that kind of checks all these boxes, looking at what the federal requirements were? And a lot of our agencies, they had some planning in place, but they didn't have one that really checked all those boxes. So, Compass, kind of being this regional partner, stepped in and said, we'll lead this plan. And by our member agencies taking a part of this plan or participating in this plan, it enables them to go for those implementation dollars as soon as we have an adopted plan with meeting all the requirements of the program. So it's really an opportunity opened up to all of our agencies to go for those bigger implementation grants once we get this plan completed.
Cool. And you kind of briefly touched on kind of regional collaboration. How big of a role did the region play in creating this campaign?
Yeah, it was huge. We had letters of support from everybody. I think safety is something everyone agrees is one of our top priorities. We had, I think, over 40 staff members from over 30 different agencies partake at some point or another in this this project. So whether it was just emailing back or forth or showing up to some of our larger stakeholder meetings.
Awesome. We love regional collaboration around here.
Yeah.
How cool. So would you just briefly, moving on to the plan itself, I guess, could you outline the vision and goals for this plan?
Sure. So our vision statement, this was developed as part of the plan, is a Treasure Valley unified by a commitment to eliminate fatalities and serious injuries on its roadways through innovation, collaboration, education, and engagement. Part of the vision and goals is they're guided by principles that come from the safe systems approach. And this is an approach adopted by the U.S. Department of Transportation and the Federal Highways Administration that has been proven successful by several other countries over the world to reduce fatalities and serious injuries. And it's really a mindset shift from kind of the traditional safety planning approach that we've taken in this country. It realizes we're not going to eliminate all crashes, but we should focus on those life-altering ones, the ones that are fatal and serious injuries. It recognizes that humans are vulnerable and they make mistakes, and that our designs should accommodate that. Or if they do make a mistake, it shouldn't end in a fatality or a serious injury. It's being more proactive. It's more about controlling speed through design. And really taking this common approach that safety is everybody's responsibility. It's the public, it's the planners, it's the engineers, it's everybody's responsibility to make our roads safe.
For sure. So you briefly touched on the desired outcome for this plan really being a tangible safety change in society, people being able to reduce deaths and serious injuries on our roadways. So are there any other additional desired outcomes from this plan besides the overall arching aspect of reducing deaths and serious injuries?
Yeah, I think there's some, that's really the overarching one that will affect the public the most. But I think there's some that the outcomes of this plan that will affect how, we plan and design and implement our projects. So, we did a reflection and looked at, the current transportation safety practices with regards to planning and design policies in our region. And then we looked outside of our region and said, what are some of these places that are doing particularly well? What practices are they incorporating, and what can we bring to our region? Interesting things like type projects with maintenance projects. So if you're going to go tear up a road, there's an opportunity to restripe or reconfigure or make a road safer. That's one approach. Some of the quick build stuff that you're starting to see are some of the good practices that, we know that some of these transportation projects can take several years to fund and do, but what can we do? Use it as a stopgap. So what temporary type barriers can we put up or paint or striping? And so looking at those different practices and bringing them back into our region and see where they're working and what we can do better. We developed a toolkit of strategies. So what type of safety countermeasures or things do we want to see on our street that are proven and effective in other areas? And then we also did a deep dive data analysis as part of the plan and developed a tool to help identify locations for safety projects. So those are just some of the highlights of the plan.
Can you explain a little bit more about those strategies initially? Like, what is a high injury network?
Yes. So the high injury network was a tool that we used to identify priority locations for safety projects. And that was developed by identifying locations with history of fatal and serious injury crashes, or locations that had a high risk of fatal and serious accidents based on the trends analysis we did as looking at fatal and serious accidents in our region. So that's part of that proactive approach I talked about in the safe systems is, we're looking back on what already happened on our roadways, but we're also trying to be proactive in identifying, we know something bad happened here. Here's what the conditions were around that. Where else on our transportation system does that environment exist and create those same types of risks? So that high injury network is a combination of those two types of analysis to identify the roads and intersections that are high, that have the highest crash history, plus have those risk factors involved. So it's really a tool that we used in the plan to identify projects for each one of our member agencies that we built around those safety countermeasures using the high injury network. We identified these locations, said, here's what's happening here, what treatments or safety countermeasures can make up a great project here. And we hope that tool is used in the future in the same way. So for this plan, we did develop projects, but we hope that this tool is continually used to develop safety type projects.
Awesome. And so I think you kind of touched on this a little bit, but could you just differentiate between infrastructure and non-infrastructure strategies in the plan?
Yes, yeah. So the infrastructure strategies in the plan refer to physical treatments on our roadways, like a roundabout or a pedestrian hybrid beacon or a crosswalk or sidewalks. So those types of physical things out in the environment are the infrastructure type strategies we're talking about. But the non-infrastructure strategies encompass a really wide range that cover education, collaboration, data analysis type things, policies that can enhance transportation safety. So those things that kind of change our planning processes and policies. And then when it comes to education, just outreach to the public, those types of things are non-infrastructure type strategies.
So what is an emphasis area?
I mentioned that high injury network. Well, during that same analysis, the emphasis areas were identified by looking at the trends of those serious and fatal crashes in our region, and they were determined significant trends contributing to these types of accidents. So intersections was a location where we're seeing a lot of these types of crashes, of those angle turning crashes. Roadway departure crashes was also one that typically ended in a bad scenario, serious or fatal. Going off the road is not good. Those vulnerable road users, like the people walking, biking, and motorcyclists, are typically make up a really low percentage of those types of crashes, but when they do happen, they tend to have a more serious outcome. So we developed an emphasis area on vulnerable road users. Seatbelt was still a factor that we're still seeing even in this day and age. People are still not wearing seatbelts. And then also alcohol and drug use was a factor involved in a lot of those fatal and serious accidents. So those emphasis areas helped us identify and build up our safety countermeasures around, because there's specific type treatments on the roadway you can do to intersections and things you can do to prevent roadway departures, make it safer for our vulnerable road users. And then, the seatbelts and alcohol drug use is really an enforcement and education, those non-infrastructure type strategies. So the emphasis areas just helped us focus our strategies better.
So let's just dive into the survey results. There was a big survey that we promoted here a little while ago in regards to the Regional Safety Action Plan. Would you mind just kind of giving a little synopsis of it, I guess, and a little brief little intro of what that survey was about?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, as part of one of the requirements of our plan and good planning practices, we always want to engage the public, engage their sentiment. They're really a valuable stream of information that, you can't get from a data set. So we had a big survey that we got over 400 responses from residents in both counties, Ada and Canyon. And some of the things that we heard or highlights that I can share were we had really that validation of our vision for our plan. And so people really agreed that that vision of zero serious and fatal injuries was appropriate. I mean, it's an ambitious vision and goal, but the public generally felt that that's where we should try or aspire to be. We heard that the average rating of how safe people felt on the roads was a 2.9 out of 5, which means there's room for improvement, right? And so we're doing okay, but we got a lot of room for improvement. We heard that people taking public transit or driving their own vehicles felt the safest getting around the valley. People riding motorcycles, scooters, e-bikes, or walking, especially with mobility devices and biking, they felt least safe getting around. We heard that the priorities for safety were intersection safety, which is one of our emphasis areas, walking and biking safety, which is another one of our emphasis areas of vulnerable road users. Those were ranked as some of the highest priorities by the public. And we also noticed that Ada County residents typically felt safer when driving, walking, and biking than our Canyon County residents. So trying to focus in on some of those strategies over in Canyon County. Some of the other highlights were driver behavior around this area, a lot of aggressive or inattentive driving, people noticing, you see that every day, and that can lead to some bad outcomes, a lot of red light running, more enforcement of speeding. something that the public mentioned they want to see.
Why is understanding public perception of transportation safety in the Treasure Valley integral to the success of the Regional Safety Action Plan? I think you kind of touched on that a little bit. But
Yeah. I mean, I think we work for the good of the public, so we want to make their voices heard and show we're listening. I think it's important to have that feedback. As some people feel frustrated that they're not heard. So giving them a chance to voice their opinions and be part of the planning process. It's really valuable to collect and hear about different experiences. All of us have our own unique commuting and transportation type experience. So I think it's important to hear from all those different walks of life and different experiences, and no one's going to have the same. So it's always valuable. And it helps us, identify issues that maybe we hadn't thought about, things that we're just like, I had no idea. And it makes sure what we're doing is going to be a benefit to the public. So.
Absolutely. So where can members of the public go to find out more information about this survey or see the data for themselves?
CompassIdaho.org/safety.
Sweet.
Everything will be up there. There's several detailed technical memos going into the plan. So if you want to dive into the nitty-gritty, there's quite a bit of information there. And then the final plan will be posted up on the website as well. That's a little bit more digestible.
And then just, I guess, diving into some next steps and long-term impacts. So what long-term impacts do you hope the Regional Safety Action Plan will have on the transportation safety landscape in Ada and Canyon counties?
Yeah, I have a few aspirations. I think with anything, we put in a good over a year work on this plan. I hope that the tools and the principles and everything that we put into this plan gets put into practice. And that's kind of what you ultimately hope for as a planner, is you see the like I mentioned, the high injury network. I hope that our partners are using that to prioritize their locations for safety projects. I hope they're using the toolkit we've developed to focus around those emphasis areas. So I think that would be kind of a lasting legacy of this plan that I hope happens. And I hope that this is a thing too, that we don't just set it and forget it. I hope we pick it up in another 5 years or so, evaluate the data again and see, what changes have happened, and kind of keep this plan fresh, or the strategy fresh. It would be awesome to see some more safe streets and roads for all money come in. We've already had, we've got 3 more awards coming on the way. Nampa has 2. Compass was awarded another grant in this last opportunity to look at leading pedestrian interval, which is a vulnerable road user strategy. It's giving pedestrians a little bit more time to get out into the crosswalk and establish their presence before the light changes. So I hope, and then the implementation dollars, I hope to see some of our agencies get some of these big grant awards. There's a couple of years left in this program. I hope it continues through the next administration. I think safety is, what I've heard, is a big priority still. And I hope that we see some of our member agencies win some of these awards to do the projects that we've outlined in the plan.
Awesome. And what are the next steps for this plan?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we have a couple other plans going on that will kind of build off this work. I think one of the next steps for Compass is to formally charter a work group for safety and track the implementation on this plan. As I mentioned, this is an action plan, so there's a list of actions, near-term, kind of medium-term, long-term things that it's a to-do list for us to keep working on to improve safety. So keep working through those items, and then monitor our performance. We've set some targets in the plan to keep reporting on the numbers and sharing that with our technical committees and our board members, and show them what kind of progress we're making.
Awesome. Yeah. Cool. Do you have anything else to add about the Regional Safety Action Plan, or?
No, I just want to. I want to say it was a great experience. Gosh, it's something that everyone can rally around, and I really appreciated everyone's input and all of our member agencies. I had such great participation. It was really something special. So, yeah, thanks to everyone who helped with this that's listening.
And thank you, Hunter, for all of your hard work and for sharing with us all of this awesome information today. Stay tuned for future episodes and subscribe to our email list for direct updates by emailing info@compassidaho.org. Thanks for listening. Drive safely, Treasure Valley.